I'm going to give you a quick heads up, then we get right into the Giants with Dan Quinn as a distinct possibility being their new head coach. Sweeney Murray told us yesterday that Aaron Judge is not a priority for the Yankees, and that's something Tiki and I will circle back to later. But Dan Quinn, how you feeling about this, Mr. Giant?
I like Dan Quinn. I've had many conversations with him on our previous show. I think he's largely remembered for one of the worst Super Bowl meltdowns, maybe the worst Super Bowl meltdown ever, the 28-3 come-from-behind loss, or I guess you could say come-from-ahead loss against the New England Patriots, where Kyle Shanahan, who's now the head coach of the 49ers, decided he didn't want to run the football to run out the clock in the second half and allowed Tom Brady, with possessions and time on the clock because of the incompletions, to come back and win that football game. And then the last couple of years in Atlanta, he just struggled. They had a ton of injuries on defense, and it felt like he just didn't have it. Now, a lot of it wasn't his fault, but it felt like he didn't have it because of the injuries in Atlanta. But then he resurrected himself last season in Dallas. He goes down to Dallas. It was a cluster down there with their defense, as we all remember from 2 seasons ago, not this past season. And this year, they were great, at least in the turnover department. Opportunistic. They led the league in turnovers. They led the league in turnover differential. They were just really good on defense. Interceptions, they led the league in as well. And Dan Quinn will get a lot of credit for that. But if I'm a Giant fan, the question you got to ask yourself, and we said this from the very beginning of this GM/head coach search, and we'll get to the GMs in a little bit here, BT, is the guy that you hire going to make you feel like you can win a championship in 3 to 5 years? And I'm not sure Dan Quinn is that guy for the New York Giants. Now, he might be able to win a championship in 3 to 5 years, but in your mind, are you saying, yes, Dan Quinn is the guy that's going to win us a championship, like Jim Harbaugh would? Or
Why, Jim hasn't won any.
I know, but at least in your mind.
Jim also had a little bit of a collapse in the Super Bowl.
But he had I'm just saying. He had a 4-yard collapse.
I
and
understand
by the way,
that.
It was Greg Roman. Could he have overruled?
But what was the score when the lights went out? They were getting waxed, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were getting knocked around a little bit there.
All I remember is
Or was
the
it
last.
the other way? They didn't play well in the Super Bowl for half the game.
I just remember the
first
last
half.
series.
Yeah, with
was,
the fades.
Which was Greg Roman not getting the ball to I'm forgetting
Frank Gore.
Frank
They kept throwing the fades to Crabtree here.
So yes, I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I like Jim, but and by the way, Jim's not coming here.
He's
Giant
not coming
fans
here.
need to let go of that pipe dream.
But my point is, if Jim Harbaugh comes to the New York Giants, in your mind you're going, yes, great head coach, done it in college, done it in the NFL, made Alex Smith into this. He turned Colin Kaepernick into that. I believe that he can come here and do this.
Finally beat the Buckeyes.
That's right. Whoever it may be, it's got to be somebody who is. You're not going to doubt in your mind that he can win a championship. Now, Dan Quinn is not actually that guy.
No.
You're not going to really doubt him, but Giants fans aren't going to love it.
I like it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I think it's a home run grand slam. It's not an A+. You know, I'd say it's a B+. And with the right general manager who actually knows how to draft and structure a team, maybe that B+ turns into an A.
Yeah.
Listen, he's a local guy. He's from Morristown. You know, he's with the Jets for a couple of years, coach of the D-line. You reference his success with Seattle. You know, you look at and you can run through the minutia of not every stop. We don't care about every stop, but the things that we would illuminate from his resume. DC with Seattle, great success.
Legion of Boom, we all remember that.
No doubt. Head coach with Atlanta, great succce, even though they fell short, 28-3, but they got there. DC with Dallas, completely remade, a horrendous unit. Good personality, which is obviously
great personality.
It's important that we love him.
Local guy, which means absolutely nothing, but people will talk about.
Well, you know what, though? It means that not that every local person has great interpersonal skills, but Dan Quinn's a guy, and it matters in this town. Adam Gase was a mutant.
Yeah. I think what you're trying to say, though, BT, you have to understand how New York media is going to treat you and how the fans are going to respond to you.
And Dan Quinn knows that because he's from Morristown, New Jersey.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've talked to him, and we like him.
What if he grew up a Giants fan or a Jets fan?
He had to be a Giants fan.
He had to be a Giants fan.
He had to be a Giants fan.
This is Morristown. It's right around the corner. Morristown, they had training camp at Fairleigh Dickinson.
So what?
I guarantee you he was a Giants
One
fan
of my
growing
best
up.
friends lives in Morristown. He's a Jets fan.
That's because the Jets are now in Florham Park. Did he grow up in
And he grew up in Rockland County,
Exactly.
this kid, too, by the way.
There
No, I
you
got
go.
you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the Giants, just to give some context here, the Giants aren't going to hire Dan Quinn. They're interviewing him, and it's like, oh, my God, are they going to hire Dan Quinn? They're not going to hire Dan Quinn.
Oh, so it's a complete waste of time what we just discussed?
No, Dan Quinn is being interviewed because I'm assuming that Ryan Poles and Joe Shane and Adam Peters, who are the 3 finalists for the general manager job, have told the Giants, because they asked this question, who's on your list for head coaches? And Dan Quinn was probably on one, if not all 3 of those lists because of the job that he did in Dallas and obviously the previous history that we were just alluding to. So don't get it twisted that the Giants are going to hire the head coach before they hire the GM.
Yes, good point,
because I'm starting
Deke.
to see some of that out there.
That's a laziness right there.
Exactly. The Giants just need to get ahead of this process because they can't go another week and a half, 2 weeks to hire their head coach.
I think they named their general manager by the weekend. I think it's happening in the next day or so.
I think you're right.
And Tiki, that's an outstanding point because you start to see, and listen, I understand, people have real jobs, not that they don't want to see the Giants do well. Of course they do. But maybe they're not following this like you and I are, and they're like, well, you're going to hire the coach before you hire the GM? What are all these rumblings about?
Same
the Giants
mistakes.
they haven't really changed. I thought they were changing. No, they are. I mean, what you need to know is that Dan Quinn's already interviewed with Denver and the Vikings. Okay, that's already happened. The Bears and the Dolphins will transpire later this week.
Yep.
And now, as Tiki said again, what the Giants are doing, they asked the 3 gentlemen who are on the short list for GM candidacies, and one is with the Bills, who we like, Joe Shane, Poles from Kansas City, Adam Peters from the Niners. And by the way, Peters has a relationship pre-existing from his Pats days with Brian Flores, so there's a little connection there. And there's no doubt they ran Dan Quinn, just like I'm sure they ran Flores' name and everybody else that they like internally, the Giants. Hey, if we hire you, would you think about Dan Quinn?
Yeah.
And if one of them didn't like Dan Quinn, I don't think that would necessarily rule them out from GM candidacy for the Giants. But this is not a sloppy search. I think the Giants are running a very good search. But I want to get back to something you said here. Like, all right, Giant fans wouldn't be enthralled with the hire. I got it. And you want to win the press conference, although that's only a temporary fix, right? Like a little high and then it dissipates. There is no home run hire. Because as much as, and you're right that Jim Harbaugh would galvanize Giant fans. Jim has no Super Bowls, none. Nope. Brian Flores, none. I'll tell you the one guy, you're going to talk to Doug Peterson? Doug Peterson's actually got a Super Bowl.
No,
so
right.
Who is the guy, Teak? And I'm legitimately asking you, who is the guy that you think would be the perfect candidate encapsulating, personality, Super Bowl pedigree, whatever else you're looking for? Who is that guy for the Giants?
So Dan Quinn is interesting because we remember the number one, the Legion of Boom. They won the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks. And then 2 years later, he goes and he becomes the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Those defenses, maybe one of them finished in the top 10. One. In his 8 years there, one of them finished in the top 10.
But were they 27th or were they 13,
14,
15?
27, 8. That was the top 10. 25, 23, 23, 19.
Yeah.
And last year he got the Cowboys up to number 7. So, I mean, we can't oversell the success that he's had as a defensive coordinator because in Seattle – you got to remember that was a changing of the construction of defenses.
What, big corners, you mean? Stuff like that?
6'1" corners.
Well, Browner was 6'4", I think.
Yep, getting in your grill.
Yeah.
We're going to let you catch the ball in front of us, and you're going to pay for it. Like, it was just a different mentality, the defense, that not a lot of teams had seen, and they hadn't combated with offensive schemes yet.
And Hall of Famers, by the way.
And most of them. You're absolutely right, BT. And so I think the defensive prowess is something that you get excited about when you talk about Dan Quinn, but it hasn't been consistent over the 12 years, or the 9 years that he's been a DC and a head coach in the NFL. And so to answer your question, I said this last week, BT, and I'm going to stick with it because I want my GM tied to my head coach in a working relationship. And so the Joe Shane and the Brian Daboll combo just feels like it makes so much sense to me.
Yep.
Now, I know that defense is I don't know, it's what we want to talk about, but offense is winning in the NFL these days. If you don't have an innovative offense, if you don't have a quarterback who's either had grew up with the pedigree and through high school and college and even his first couple of years in the NFL of being a great. And if you don't have that, you got to have a coach that's going to craft him into that. You're just not winning. Look at the teams that are left in the playoffs this year. Think of the quarterbacks.
Well, the Bucs have a dynamic offense, or they have Tom Brady.
Well,
they got Tom Brady.
They have both actually, because BT.
Come on, Mike Evans. They got studs.
Mike Evans is a tactician. And how he climbs his routes and how he gets himself open, he's not a blazer.
But I'm saying, what's so dynamic about that? Like, they just tried out great players and Brady delivers.
Well, that's fine.
It's not innovative.
So there's two ways to win on offense. It's either via scheme, which is what Kyle Shanahan tries to do, or it's just having better talent, which is what the Kansas City Chiefs has done for so many years, right? And I think teams are catching up, by the way, which is why I would say the Bills actually have the advantage here, despite being on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. So it's either through scheme, like the 49ers, we see all this misdirections, zip motion, orbit motions, handoffs to the wide receiver. Hell, the tight end even gets involved in running plays and as a runner in some senses with George Kittle. Or you win just by having superior talent. Guess what? Travis Kelce is faster than your cornerbacks. He's faster than your safeties, and he's bigger than any of these guys. Tyreek Hill is just a joystick out there. Patrick Mahomes can create plays out of nowhere, right? So you either do it by scheme or you do it by having superior talent. And I think Brian Daboll, to me, is one of those scheme guys. You're starting to see it in this offense over the last couple of years in Buffalo. It's 3 wide. You have a tight end who's dynamic, and Dawson Knox. You got Emmanuel Sanders out there, and then Diggs, and then Cole Beasley and Gabriel. Like, there's so much talent, right? But it's mostly scheme, and I love that about Daboll. So he's in my mind as the top. But I can understand why people are thinking, we got to change this up. We've had offensive coaches in New York really since Parcells.
Every single coach since Bill Parcells, outside of the Spags, little interim run there, has been a defensive background head coach.
That's right.
877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney here on The Fan. I just find it interesting. We'll get to these calls where, and I'm with you, I think Daboll's going to be the guy. I'm probably a little bit more open to Quinn maybe than some, and we'll find out in a moment. But, we're talking about Daboll, and I know you're not doing this, but, Daboll could be a D+. Without Josh Allen or without McDermott or whatever.
He could.
But here we are. We're nitpicking against a guy who actually lost to the Super Bowl to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, saying he's not good enough because he lost to Tom Brady and and how they lost because his offensive coordinator forgot to run the ball.
Yeah.
I like Dan Quinn.
And he won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator for the Seahawks.
I like Dan Quinn. I don't think he'll be the guy, but I like him. All right. Sonny in Malvern apparently does not. And Sonny is on The Fan, Tiki and Tierney. Sonny, what's going on, buddy? How are you today?
Guys, much appreciated. Thanks for the call.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Listen, Dan Quinn, and I think I have a pretty good pulse of a lot of Giant fans, and I'm talking about old school Giant fans, guys in their 50s, 60s, 40s. Absolutely not. Dan Quinn had some really good teams in Atlanta. He had only 2 winning seasons out of 6. I think he was 43 and 42. And, guys, you cannot get past. And, Tiki, thank you for that opening because everybody remembers. You cannot get past, and that's in everybody's head, up 28-3.
Yeah.
The New England Patriots had a 1% chance of winning that game, and the Atlanta Falcons blow it. And that's all on the head coach.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't calling the plays, but he oversees those plays. And I think they said, why did you keep passing the ball? He said he did not want to beat the Patriots. He wanted to embarrass them. And that is not a great head coach. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
He is not going to
Sonny, let me run something by you here. And
Sonny, that's a good point, though, because you got to know that Bill Belichick is never trying to embarrass anybody. He just wants to beat you. Period.
No, I think Belichick tried to step on a few people this year. He tried to embarrass the Jets, as a matter of fact, when they tried to score 60 on us.
Well, that's because he knew that he could.
Well, then let's not say that he never tries to embarrass anybody because that's not correct.
I'm talking about to win Super Bowls. When it comes to the ultimate prize, Bill Belichick, if we're beating you by a field goal with no time on the clock, then I know I got my kicker that's going to kick a field. He's going to make. I can line up for 60 to whatever, 25 to 60. He's making that kick.
He doesn't get wrapped up in the aesthetics of the victory. No, I would agree with that. But the one thing about this notion that, head coaches can't get better with their second job. I mean, one of the issues among myriad issues with Adam Gase was that He got fired in Miami, and he got sucked up right away.
Yeah.
Without a chance to look in the mirror.
Same thing with Rex Ryan.
Rex Ryan with Buffalo, self-evaluate, tap into a weakness. And listen, you and I've referenced with you a lot. When Rick Carlisle got fired by the Pistons, he went on ESPN. And the knock on Rick was he wasn't great with people.
Yeah.
And, I know Rick pretty well from back in the day in Detroit. And Rick would walk, and I loved Rick, but around the building, he wasn't into small talk with the receptionist, wasn't a great people person. Something he was on TV, and the whole aura changed. And he repackaged himself, and he's had a great career since, and he's still coaching. Don't tell me that, I guess what I'm saying is I don't agree with the thought that the 28-3 should be the final nail in his coffin, because I do believe smart people evolve.
I don't disagree with that, BT.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. I still don't think he'll be hired, but let's get Joe, who is in East Brunswick, and Joe is on the fan, Tiki and Tierney. Joe.
Hey, what's doing, guys? Doing a great job. I'm glad you're on the fan. Since the first of the year, everything's great since the 30th of the year. You guys are unbelievable.
Appreciate you,
Something
Joe.
good midday.
Thank you, Joe.
sir.
Thank you, Joe. What's up, pal?
You're just talking about Belichick. I don't think Quinn's the guy. There aren't a lot of opportunities. Belichick looks like when you saw him last week, I don't know if he was pissed off or he's just frustrated up in New England.
Oh, here we go.
Is it possible that the Giants could come up with some scheme to bring him here as a GM? Maybe he wants to be done with coaching.
I mean,
and with that,
here we go.
With that, bring Josh McDaniels along.
Joe,
now you got.
I've said this. Tiki, why don't you take this? Because I've said this for a week straight.
No, but his Joe's
Thanks, Joe.
Joe's direction is a tad bit different than what you were espousing. You were saying bring in Bill Belichick to be the head coach and just let him have all the power.
Well, but then also a succession plan in place where he eventually moves to the front office and he runs the Giants until he's about 80.
So it's interesting what he just said. So first of all, it's not happening. Bill Belichick is not coming to the New York Giants. If he was 5 years younger, I believe it would be a possibility. If we were having this conversation right after Tom Coughlin got fired, before they hired Ben McAdoo and then Pat Shurmur and then Joe Judge.
Benny Suits.
Exactly. Then maybe Bill Belichick at 64 years old would have said, you know what, that's appealing to me. I love the New York Giants. I want to go fix the New York Giants. I want to take the time. It might take 3 or 4 years to remake the entirety of this team, from the roster to the coaching staff, through the scouting department, like all of that. Get the philosophies how I wanted, how I built it for 2 decades in New England. I'd do that. But now it's too late. It's not going to happen at 70 years old. He doesn't have the energy, and I know that for a fact. So the question becomes, would he just ask?
What, he was doctor? What do you mean? You know the energy level. What is?
I've just
got
heard
his
it.
charts.
No, I've just heard
What does that mean? You know that for a fact?
I just know.
How do you know it for a fact?
Because I talk to people who tell me that.
How do they know for a
Because
fact?
they've talked to him.
Are they his doctor?
No. But here's the thing.
The energy level.
Not energy level.
Yeah, pumping through his veins? I don't understand that.
Do you know how long it takes to remake an entire organization?
Yeah, I've seen the Jets try to do it my entire life.
Exactly. How long has it taken?
My entire life.
Exactly. So,
And we're still waiting.
Are the Giants going to? Is Bill Belichick going to do that for the next 10 years?
With 2 top 10 picks, maybe.
For the next 10 years?
No, 10 years is ambitious.
So I'm just saying. But so that brings up an interesting point, that Joe, which I'm trying to get to. That if Bill Belichick would just say, I'm done with coaching, I just want to be the GM, and the Giants are the place I want to go to, he'd come here and he'd need a coach. And Josh McDaniels sounds like an interesting one. First of all, I think Josh McDaniels wants to stay exactly where he is and succeed Bill Belichick when he retires. He wants to be the head coach of the New England Patriots. That's why he kept going back every time he would go someplace else, would fail or deke someone out, Indianapolis Colts, and come back to the New England Patriots. But the question would become, if Bill Belichick is the GM and Josh McDaniels is the head coach, this is of the Giants.
I'm listening.
Who's actually the head coach of the New York Giants?
Well, I mean, it's not going to happen, so I guess it doesn't matter.
It wouldn't be Josh McDaniels. That was a long way to shoot down what you just suggested, Joe.
Which you shot down when I said it the other day as well. 877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney on the fan Twitter, at Tiki and Tierney. Let's face it, Giants have a lot to fix. And by that, there's probably no real true Grand Slam candidate. So who are you looking for? Because there's a lot of good ones, all right? So, characteristics. Are you maybe predisposed to go back to defense. We always talk about and probably romanticize like, oh, the Yankees need left-handed bats, which, by the way, is true. Hopefully Cashman gets all of us behind and actually gets some. And I don't mean Gallo, who strikes out 2 times a game. Guys who actually make contact.
The left field porch is only 4
feet longer.
4 feet longer.
It's the left field gap that I always tell you about, Clown. You always bring that up, and it's a big difference. It's Death Valley out there.
I know.
And I'll probably get Olsen anyway from the A's. But point being, the Yankees need lefty sticks, and the Giants are rooted in defense, linebackers, run the ball, stuff like that. So maybe it's time to go back to a defensive coach. But to your point, maybe the game has changed so much that that's the wrong way to view it. It's a bit of an antiquated prism. What exactly are you looking for in the Giants' next coach? 877-337-6666.